in this video I want to talk with you about sunburns and what are the causes and how you can prevent sunburns from appearing. Here in front of you I have a lovely Phalaenopsis orchid. This is my Phalaenopsis Leodoros Sweet Memory. I purchased this orchid about 1 year ago from Orchid Garden in Poland, and it did started to grow really nice for me this year. It did produce a huge leaf, but after the leaf grew completely, I have decided to put her into a higher light location, because she was growing this new spike, and I thought it would be nice to give him as much light as I can without burning the leaves. And I really thought it wouldn't get burned because it was on the windowsill, but the window was not clear, was I don't remember how it's called, but anyway, so I have moved the orchid close to the window, and this was a new leaf. It didn't grow in that much light, and it was not used to it, so I didn't increase the light gradually. So that is pretty much how sunburns appear on orchids. It is when the leaf gets too hot, and then that part of the leaf gets burnt and it dies. And at first that this part of the leaf was white with let me try to bring a bit closer so you see a bit better. I will So at first it was this little whitey things that I thought was a powdery stuff, yeah, and the leaf surface was white and a bit watery. Now that slowly started to become grayish in color, whitish grayish in color, until it completely dried off. I didn't put anything except some hydrogen peroxide to 3%, because I was afraid it might actually be something else because of this sort of powdery thing, which wasn't actually powdery at all. I think was just the minerals inside the leaf which got trapped in there. Now yeah, this does look unsightly, but you can totally prevent that. Now, Phalaenopsis orchids don't require a lot of sunlight, and their leaves are very sensitive to this. Once they reach a certain temperature, they will get burned. For example, Cattleys do have these fleshy leaves as well, although they are smaller, but they do have a lot more resistance to sunburns because they can tolerate a lot more heat. And a very good indicator of any orchid, if it can tolerate more or less temperature, leaf temperature, it is to watch the leaf. If it is quite a wide leaf and long, the leaf surface will get hot quite faster. Iubito, închide ușa, te rog, aici. Îți place, nu? But if the leaf is less wide and smaller, then that orchid most probably can tolerate more sunlight. Now, don't think that Oncidium can tolerate a lot of sunlight, but I was referring to Dendrobium nobiles, for example. Their leaves are kind of like 5 centimeters wide and about 10 centimeters or 15 centimeters depending on the orchid in length. So those can tolerate a lot more sunlight, because the leaf gets hot slower. The bigger the leaf, the more sun it can get, and then the leaf gets warmer faster. Now let's try to show to you like this. Sunburns are quite dangerous when they hit the stem of the orchid, and at some point when this leaf wasn't yet here, I thought it had also a bit of discoloration, so I was really afraid that the stem was affected as well. If you get a sunburn on the stem of the orchid, on a Phalaenopsis, that can get that can be quite dangerous, because if the stem is affected, it might not grow any more new leaves, but produce a cake from the base. So I was not really looking into that. To prevent sunburns from appearing, okay, so for the orchids that are outdoors, and those are basically Cattleyas, and I do have some herbs as well, some basil, but that doesn't need shading, but the Cattleyas do need, and depending on the temperature on that specific day, I do choose the moment when I am going to put the shade cloth on. So for example, today right now it is 10 a.m. and the leaves, if I touch them, they do feel warm, but not like I would be in any danger of actually burning them. So at this point I won't put yet the shade cloth, but around 11:30 I would use the shade cloth today, because today we will only have about 26 Celsius. Now I will try to show to you on the sky. I'm not sure how much you are seeing. We don't really have a lot of clouds, actually almost none at all. The mountain, of course, is looking beautiful, and a lot of birds around. Yeah, so I will come back later, and that is a very good indicator. Touch the leaves, see if they feel hot to the touch. If they are hot even for your hand, that is a good time to put the shade cloth on. That is only if you don't have a shade cloth on all the time. Now, because of course I live at the 3rd floor, I don't have a good way to shade them all the time. So, and to me it does look rather unsightly. So I am using this only when I need, and that is in the morning time, somewhere between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. and yeah. That is how I do it. Now we will come back later, and I will show to you exactly how I will apply it. Okay, so the way to get your orchid adjusted to higher amounts of light, and eventually to prevent the appearance of sunburns, it is to try to move your orchid to higher light slowly, gradually. So for example, this orchid, before I put it in front of the window, it was about 1 meter away from the window, and that was also a very sunny location, because we can see the leaf grew very large, and it is also producing a spike. So yeah, the location in which she was initially was sunny enough, but I thought I would give her more, which was a mistake. And from 1 meter I moved her directly in front of the window, which was a very bad idea, and that is why she got burned. But if I would have done this properly, I should have moved her, let's say, from 1 meter to 80 centimeters to 60 centimeters and so on. But I would not put this type of orchid, a Phalaenopsis, next to the glass, because well, the glass gets very hot when the sun shines exactly on it, and Phalaenopsis should not stay in Vanda or Cattleya light, and that is where I have put her. But you can totally put a Phalaenopsis somewhere where you have sunlight only, let's say from 8 a.m. till 10 a.m. or something like that, or somewhere where she is more shaded. So that is another thing that you can do to ensure your orchid does receive high amounts of light but doesn't burn, to use a shade cloth or a curtain or something of the sort. And here I have an example of what I am using for my orchid. You can see it is quite thick. It is made from plastic, and it does let the orchid receive enough light, but it does create some shade, and the orchid doesn't burn anymore. So that is what I am using for my outdoor orchids. And inside the house I am making sure I am not putting any more orchids that are not supposed to be in a very highlight location like I have did in the past, and I have managed to burn this orchid. So now I will show to you how I am putting this outdoors. Okay, and now I have placed the shade cloth. It is only lightly pinned in place with some flower clips, and you can see that the orchids are shaded from above, and that is enough because I don't have sunlight reaching my orchids from the right side, but from only above. And yeah, that is quite easy. It takes me about 1 minute to place it. I place it every day from depending on the day and how warm it is, how sunny it is, if we have clouds or not. Usually in the summertime I need to place it if I have 26 Celsius at least, and the sky doesn't have any clouds. Right now we do have some clouds, and the shade cloth is not really necessary, but once I have applied it for you, I will leave it for the day. Or actually usually I am taking it at about 1 p.m. because that is the time when I don't have any more direct sunlight. So yeah guys, you should really pay some extra attention to your orchids. If you want to keep them outdoors, you do need to put a little bit of an extra effort. Indeed, your orchids will grow much better if they are outdoors, but you will also need to, as I said, do a bit of work extra to shade them and make sure they don't have any pests, and they do have a good shade, because you don't want to burn them. You can see that I have here some leaves that are not fully shaded. That is not necessary. Just a little bit of shade will be enough. John from John Benedict Orchids gave me this idea. He actually said that I should pretty much put it from this part of the window in a diagonal type of hanging, and that was a good idea, but I cannot really put shade cloth in front of my window. That would look horrible, and I'm not the only one who lives here, so I couldn't do that, but this is acceptable. It is only for 3 hours, let's say, sometimes, so I am doing what I can to make my orchids happy. And if you do grow your orchids outdoors, from time to time, depending on your area, you will need to use some pesticides, because outdoors you will have all sorts of creepy crawlers coming in, all sorts of insects, and some can damage your orchids. For example, here where I live, it does seem that I get quite a lot of spiders around, and those are not good for orchids. And I also applied, you know, about a week ago, some spider mite insecticide, or it is actually an acaricide. It was called Mildeknox, something of the sorts, and it did work really good. That thing is it is a systemic one, and it is effective for about 3 months, but I am applying that 2 times a year. So yeah, that is pretty much all, guys. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below, and I will be more than happy to answer them for you. Thank you very much for watching, and see you all next time. Bye!